Returning to the second edition of the never-ending argument, we are told that the non-proselytizing Jews were evangelizing.
Quran 2, verse 109. Quite a number of the people of the book wish they could turn you,
Muslim
people, back to infidelity after you have believed.
That would actually be submitted.
Through selfish envy, even after the truth has become manifest to them. Indulge them until Allah issues His orders.
The first part is funny. The second part is not. Jews who were employed, prosperous, and literate, who possessed the longest surviving and best documented monotheistic faith in the world, were jealous of Mohammed's band of bandits? I don't think so. But what's sinister is Allah's ultimate order to exile and murder them. Within a mere 6 months, Mohammed would perpetrate a horrible crime. That said, it was back to business. Mohammed needed some more rituals and taxes. They became his means of suppression and oppression.
Quran 2, verse 110. Establish worship, ritual prayer, and pay the zakat tax. Whatever good you send before your souls, you will find with Allah. Surely Allah sees what you do.
Pay now, receive later. Then it was back to the never-ending argument.
Quran 2, verse 111. They say, none shall enter paradise unless he be a Jew or Christian. Those are their vain desires. Say, produce your proof if you are truthful. Nay,
the tolerant religion said,
whoever submits his face to Allah and surrenders, he will get his reward. On such shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. The Jews say, the Christians follow nothing, and the Christians say, the Jews follow nothing true. Yet they profess to recite the same scripture book, but Allah will judge between them in their quarrel.
By the 7th century, Jews had long since stopped criticizing Christians, and Jews only read out of half of the book. Moreover, Christians believe every word of the Hebrew Scriptures. So once again, Allah has His facts entirely wrong. Finished with the Christians and Jews for the moment, it was time for Allah to take a swipe at the Meccans once again.
Quran 2, verse 114. And who is more unjust than he who forbids Allah's name to be celebrated and mentioned in the sanctuary places, the mosque, and strives for their ruin? It was not fitting that such should enter them, except in fear. For there is nothing but disgrace in this world, and in the next an exceeding torment, an awful doom.
This is Mohammed's feeble attempt to justify his new career path as pirate, kidnapper, and murderer. Terrorism is justified because the Meccans shooed me away from Allah's house. And while that's as lame as it is immoral, the verse is not without a pearl. If Allah's name should be celebrated, then Allah is a name and not a word. In other words, Allah cannot be both the Arabic word for God and the name of its God at the same time. That would be like naming your pet dog, Dog. Since dog is God backwards, maybe we've stumbled onto something. Now that dog has bared its fangs, at the Meccans it's time to bite Christians.
Quran 2, verse 116. They say, Allah hath begotten a son, glory be to Him. Nay, to Him belongs all that is in the heavens and on the earth. All are subservient and obedient to Him.
It's all right to say Allah has daughters if there's a buck in it, but heaven forbid you should say that Christ is the Son of God.
To Him is due the primal origin of the heavens and earth. When He decrees a matter, He says to it, be, and it is.
It's a good thing that contradictions are abrogated in the Quran, or this would be a problem. Everything the Quran says Allah created, including the earth, Adam, and Jesus, were made in the same manner, a manner other than saying, be, and it is. In an earlier chapter, the Islamic Abraham introduced us to the second surah, starting with the 118th verse. Allah lured Abraham out of Israel, the land flowing with milk and honey, into the wastelands of Arabia, to make the pagan Kaaba appear monotheistic. The Quran, however, was not as daring as the Hadith. It made no attempt to explain how or why a 100-year-old man crossed 1,000 miles of desert with an illegitimate infant and a slave girl to reach a place that wouldn't be inhabited for 25 centuries. In a long-winded speech, Allah said that Abraham and his Jewish kin were Muslims, practicing Islam.
Quran 2, verse 132. And this was the legacy that Abraham left to his sons by Yaqub. O my sons, Allah has chosen the faith for you, the true religion. Then die not except in the faith of Islam as Muslims. He said to his sons, What will you worship after me? They said, We will worship your Ilah, or God, the Ilah of your fathers, of Abraham, Ishmael, and Isaac, the one Ilah. To him we submit in Islam.
It's a wonder such an important profession of faith eluded the Hebrew prophets. Nowhere in the Bible are the words Muslim, Muhammad, Allah, or Islam written. It's inconceivable that Abraham could have had such a fine religion and not even mention it, or his pal Allah. We also covered Allah's admission in the 138th verse that he was a Baptist. This was followed by Allah's delusional claim that he was Yahweh. Starting at the 142nd verse, Allah tells us that Muslims should no longer play with the Christians and Jews. They must now recognize the monotheistic holiness of Allah's pagan shrine, the rock pile in Mecca. The Kaaba is called a sacred and holy mosque, even though the only actual mosque at this time served as Muhammad's brothel. The mosque in Medina was an open courtyard. The buildings that surrounded it served as apartments for Muhammad's wives, sex slaves, and concubines. And the shrine of which they spoke was still home to hundreds of rock idols, including Allah's black stone.
Quran 2, verse 142. The fools among the people will say, What has turned them from their Qibla, which they had? Say, the east and the west belong only to Allah. He guides whom He likes to the right path. Thus we have appointed you a medium nation, that you may be witnesses against mankind, that the messenger may be a witness against you. And we appointed the Qibla which you had formerly observed, only that we might know him who follows the messenger from him who turns on his heels.
Mohammed had just arrived in Yathrib, and his foolish spirit was already calling the townsfolk fools. The one-time prophet termed profiteer had moved away from Allah's house in disgrace, following the satanic verses. He had changed his Qibla to Jerusalem opportunistically, naively thinking the Jews would accept him as their Messiah. When they rejected him for the fool he was, his God told his co-conspirator, The Jews have rejected our bogus claims, so we're not going to play with them anymore. Team Islam issued an about-face. You probably noticed that the never-ending argument gained a larger antagonist. Mohammed and his dark spirit are now against mankind. What you may not have noticed, however, was the admission of failure. Mohammed needed a way to determine who was in lockstep with him, as he had been unable to secure a sufficient quantity of the Ansar helpers to go along with his new program. Not a single Ansar joined the pirates in any of the first dozen Muslim raids. Then, when the last one prevailed, ending in murder, theft, and kidnapping for ransom, they cried foul, since the raid breached their religious covenants.